Hey everyone! So I had made a video earlier on dialogue and just a few basics covering some of the grammar, like with dialogue tags and if they go at the beginning of the sentence or if they're in the middle of the sentence or if they're at the end of the sentence, like what do we do with commas versus other punctuation marks with quotation marks. So that was just a very basic video, but I also wanted to go over a few questions that I've had certain students ask in the past. And they're very relevant, and I've answered them as students have come up and asked me, just like off the top of my head. But I oftentimes, as most teachers, have this happen where a student will have a question and like 5 other students have the same question. So I just wanted to address them if anyone else is having certain questions about dialogue. And again, you can always send me an email if like I don't go over one of these questions about dialogue and you're still curious about it. Like, you can always still reach out to me, alright? So I have like 5 questions I'm going to go over, and so I'll share the question and then I'll just kind of briefly talk or state kind of my go-to fix for that, or just my honest thoughts or opinions. One of the most common questions is, how often should I use a dialogue tag? And if you do, then how do you differentiate that from a character's thoughts, which aren't really spoken out loud, therefore they wouldn't be dialogue? And my answer to that is, do whatever is easiest for you. It's really just your own craft and you have to master your craft. So start out very basic. Your main goal is that the reader can differentiate who is talking. Okay, so as long as that is taking place, and you can always say like, hey, friend or other trustworthy person, read this. And if you're like, oh yeah, I get it, then you're like, okay, good, my goal was met. As for showing thoughts, it's very similar to dialogue, except for you get rid of your quotation marks. And quotation marks will only be there if a character is literally saying something out loud. So they can't say something out loud and like think internally. So here's just a very basic example. I should be getting home, Jeff thought to himself. It's still kind of like a dialogue tag where I'm letting the reader know Jeff thought to himself, like he's thinking that in his mind, but I'm not using quotation marks around it because he's not literally saying it out loud. Another way that I've used it is to use italics just to show like internal thought. But again, it's just kind of my own voice and my own style of writing. A few other authors have used that as well, and again, it is what it is. Start out basic and you can always build. Another common question is, how do I know what to say for the dialogue tag? Like maybe they know it's Susie or Billy or someone is speaking, but they don't know how to say it. Like the word said is very, very common, and there's like this huge debate over said versus like spicing it up a little bit with like literally any other word. And I say, again, just start basic. Who's speaking? How are they saying it? Are they mad? Are they angry? Are they lovey-dovey? Are they devastated? Are they irate? Like, you figure out how your character is feeling and then channel that. And again, it can be something as basic as Cory said, Cory asked, Cory yelled. Again, just showing who is saying it, how are they saying it. The third one kind of goes close to the second question is, what can I use besides the word said? How do I know what is good? And again, that's really up to you as the writer. Sometimes when I'm writing, I pretend that I'm the character and I think about the situation that I'm in and how would I deliver this line to someone. If I said, what are you doing? Would I be scared and therefore I would be angry and I would say, what are you doing? She yelled furiously. Instead of, what are you doing? I asked, which would sound much more polite. And it can really kind of tell the reader what's going on in this character's mindset, what's going on in the story, how are these characters feeling, and it can really help pull someone into the actual text, which is the goal, is to get someone to keep reading. Some words that I commonly use instead of said would be gushed, explained, stated, chided, mumbled, begged, agreed, murmured, spat, countered, stammered, and declared. But again, those are just for say. That doesn't even go with like, am I yelling it, or am I speaking softly, or am I happy, or am I sad, am I mad, am I in love? Like, you really take in some of those details and it can really help kind of craft what words you want to use. And again, I always recommend a thesaurus, and it's so easy nowadays if you Google it with this cool thing called the internet. You can get so many words or synonyms if you type in a word where it's like, well, I kind of want them to yell this, but I don't want to say the word yell. I've already used it twice. So yell, synonyms, boom. You can get so many other words, and it's really awesome. Another common question is, how do I show multiple characters talking with correct spacing? And my go-to for that is every time you have a new character talking, you will enter, down, and you will indent with tab. Every time that happens, there should be a visual signal, hey, there's a new character talking. This way, there are some cases where you could have a conversation, or at least a small one, very, very basic, and you don't really need a dialogue tag every single time, because again, too much is never a good thing and it can distract the reader. The fifth one is just, why is dialogue important to writing? And I've had some people ask like, hey, what are some tips and tricks? And so I'm just going to give you a few that I've kind of learned as I've gone through writing and becoming a writer and really wanting to master my own craft as well. So here are my few tips. Dialogue is important because it's easy and fast to read and people tend to like it. It's a real cool way to reveal characters and other characteristics. It brings a realness to your story. People talk, people like to talk. Don't stay prescriptive, like we don't talk how we write, so dialogue's your chance to not be so formal. You can use colloquialisms, you can use slang, you can not write properly because, again, some people might not speak prescriptively. I certainly don't, and I don't expect many other people to either. So again, it's your chance to really be creative and show different dialects or dialogues, however people want to talk. Dialogue should have a point. Don't have it if it doesn't further the plot or let us know something about the character. It's like filler and it can just be boring. Try to avoid that. Try to avoid saying the character's name repeatedly. So if I had like Sarah, and I kept on saying, Sarah said, Sarah said, Sarah said, that would get very repetitive and people would be like, I know she's talking. I could just say she, especially if she's the only female character there. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Or you could just say the girl, or the girl with green eyes flecked with gold. Like, you can describe this character in different ways to where it spices it up a little bit and it's not going to be so repetitive. And again, this takes time. You need to practice. Don't expect it to be beautiful. Every paper starts out very poorly, and the one thing to remember is that it can always be made better. Like, have patience with yourself. It's not going to just be this beautiful thing. Writing is a very messy, dirty process. And it's a matter of creating something and then cleaning it and cleaning it and cleaning it until you have something beautiful that you're like, okay, I will accept this now at this time to be my final work. Because again, otherwise you'd be working on something forever, because it can always be better. You have to reach a point where you're like, I'm happy with this. And again, the last thing I would say is read. Like, if you guys find something that you actually like, you guys can see good dialogue. And if you see good dialogue, you'll have a pretty good feeling of how to write good dialogue. Again, good reading promotes healthy writing. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Keep writing. Don't be afraid to learn. Bye guys.